Hello, everybody. It's me, Pacific. And today I want to talk to you from the harbor here in Hong Kong, Causeway Bay. You see the boats behind me and part of the Hong Kong skyline. It is a foggy, overcast day, but beautiful for recording more commentary on life in Hong Kong. I have noticed another group of people that is very, very lacking in manners, etiquette, kindness, and compassion in Hong Kong, and that group would be Australians, specifically expats living and working in Hong Kong and their relatives that come to visit them. Not sure why, but the following observations have been made on a daily basis in my dealings with walking, traveling, and intermingling with Hong Kong culture. One of the things that I have noticed is that consistently there's been a level of rudeness that not sure why it takes place. I'm not the only one who's noticed this. Many other races have noticed it, from Filipina to Canadians to Americans, which, by the way, Aussies, I am an American and I'm proud of it. And the reason I say that is you will find out why I said that as you continue to watch this video, which I'm sure will incense, anger, or cause you to ridicule and mock me. That's okay. I can take it. I try to deal with the facts as I see them. I'm taught not to make generalizations, don't judge a book by its cover, etc., etc. However, there's an old saying, actions speak louder than words, and when I see constant recurring actions, and other people see constant recurring actions with a group or race or sex of people, it's going to be quite easy to make a factual, generalized statement. I realize not all Australians are like this. I have several lady and male friends that are Australian, and they're wonderful people. They grew up and got properly potty trained and learned manners. Sorry for the sarcasm. In Hong Kong, most of the Aussies are pushing well over 6 feet tall. That was the first thing I noticed when I moved here. They are very tall. Most of them are quite big. The men, they're big enough to snap me in two like a toothpick. I don't have a problem with that. But the reason I say that is they use their size and their stature to bully people out of their way. Specifically, the Bowen Road, Chim Cha Choi, Star Ferry, Victoria Park, and the jogging track. I've noticed that Australians love to just bowl people over. Don't move, don't slow down, don't yield. Even in heavy crowds of tourists and people, they come running through full tilt, full speed, and they use their upper body weight to slam right into other citizens of this fine country. Not sure why they do that. But one of the things that I have noticed is that consistently they seem to think that it's okay to show aggression and bullying. In my country, we're taught not to do that, though unfortunately in my country we're seeing a level of that with SUV owners, sport utility vehicles. They think because they're in something big they can tailgate and bully people out of their way. There's a book out there called Everything I Need to Know About Life I Learned in Kindergarten. Obviously, these people didn't learn to wait their turn in line, say please and thank you, excuse me, or sorry when they do bang into somebody. Pushing and shoving is schoolyard garbage. I notice that the Hong Kong Australians are loud, arrogant, braggadocio, and wear their Australianness on their sleeves. Most of the time in the marketplace, I don't know the people personally, but I hear them constantly say, well, I'm from Australia, and back in Australia, hey, you know what? I appreciate national pride. I have pride in my country, but let's cover something basic. You're in Hong Kong. If Australia is so much better than here, go home. There are flights daily to Sydney. There are boats. You could probably even catch a submarine if you paid somebody enough money, or get on somebody's nice little yacht. But you're in Hong Kong. This is an international city. Australians, I don't care if you have a Hong Kong permanent ID card. You don't own this city. This is China's territory. You're guests here, and China could kick you out at any time. If you think your permanent resident status will protect you, you're wrong. You're under the sovereignty of China. And the day may come when they kick all of us white people out. And I wouldn't blame them for it based on the behavior I'm about to report. I was up on the Bowen Road last summer walking a dog for an Australian lady friend of mine. Just did it to help her out. And an Australian, over 6 feet tall, sized me up came running down a sidewalk that was 3 feet wide. There's a rail on both sides, 4 feet high, so I couldn't move, could not get out of the way. I was all the way to the right, the dog between my leg and the rail, and Mr. Australian, Mr. Etiquette, comes blasting through, full speed ahead, slams into my shoulder, knocking me completely on my back. When I got up, I was shocked, and I yelled at him and said, "What the blank is your problem?" And typical Australian manners that they are and use, said, "Well, you see me running." Yeah, dude, it's a sidewalk, not a side run. I don't know if you know that. There's a lot of people that walk here. Up on the Bowen Road in Hong Kong, it's an area above a section called mid-levels, expensive flats where mostly Australian people live. Most of them don't pay for their apartment, their employers pay for them. So they're making goo-gobs of money and spending most of it on themselves and their materialism and their trips to upper-end apartment and fashion stores. And I'm going to get to the women soon. The males got a little too much testosterone that they never learned to maturely and properly use. So they think it's sport to pick on the small guy because it's no challenge to them, and they know in their heart, what are you going to do about it? So I guess they learned from their buddy Darwin quite well that God doesn't exist, and therefore they can just have the survival of the fittest mentality, bowl people over, and keep on going. By the way, I don't agree with Mr. Darwin, but I see that Darwinianism and evolution has taken a good toehold into Australia. Well, it shows by the way you're acting and your lack of manners. You're acting like worse than monkeys. But anyways, let's get back to the topic at hand. What I'm trying to deal with here is, why are you people so rude? Does Hong Kong go to your head because you're living and working here? Or did you come from down under with that mentality? I loved Australia. Years ago, I thought about moving there. I like the group Men at Work. I still listen to them. And Australia's got some very beautiful scenery. And again, I've met some wonderful people there. Met a nice lady in Denver, Colorado that I had over for dinner years ago. She was from Adelaide. Wonderful gal. I talk to people in chat rooms from Australia that are nice. But back to Hong Kong. I don't know why the men do this. They don't just do it to me. And this has happened several times. I've been up on the Bowen Road, moved all the way to the right. Here comes Joe Testosterone, 6-foot-tall Aussie, and slams into me again. Another one. They don't say sorry. They don't say excuse me. You yell at them, but they have no conscience, and they just continue on like a big rumbling machine with their little headphones on. And I want to say something about the workout people, whether they're Australian, Chinese, or whatever. You guys are rude, too. The bicycle in the U.S., the bicycle people, we want to nail the bicycle people. They ride down the center of the traffic lane. They go between the door of a city bus with discharging passengers and the curb, which is illegal as hell. They run red lights, and then they scream and yell that bikes have the same rights as motorists, and yet they don't follow any of the existing traffic laws. Not sure why that is. I'm not too fond of the bicycle in the U.S. If you want to ride your bike, follow the rules. I respect a cyclist, and I will give him plenty of room in my big vehicle to get out of his way. But when you run red lights and you're racing traffic and you're driving down the middle of the lane, hey, people are going to get annoyed, folks. We don't have too many bikes running around Hong Kong except the Chinese hauling goods back and forth. Thank God we don't have to contend with that. We just got to worry about the Nazi running cult that won't move or slow down for anybody. Like I said last week in the park at Victoria Park, it wasn't just the Chinese that were doing it, but there were a couple of Aussies blasting through the crowd of Indonesian women. What is the problem with slowing down? You can't stop? Are you a freight train? Does it take you a mile to stop? I mean, folks, you're a human being, not a machine. You don't just bowl people out of your way. And for those of you that are in that workout fitness mentality, why don't you do jobs like I do, where you actually work your body all day instead of sitting in your executive suit, which, by the way, that's another issue I'm going to bring up one day. So-called professionals in their suit and tie, they don't wait for the walk sign, they don't follow the rules, and their hearts are ugly, and they're not professional. They have a title, they have an office, they have a high-paying job, but they act no better than anybody else. So the suit and tie is a mask that stands for BS and plastic. So, back to the issue. Australian women. I don't know why you guys are so stuck up and uppity. You must think you're God's gift to men and think you're hot stuff. I see it in your body language. I've even looked at you and tried to give a friendly Westerner nod and smile, and I get nothing but a rude dagger stare in return. Now I understand, and it's been told to me that Australian men are chauvinistic, but I'm not Australian, and I'm not one of those chauvinistic men. After all, my country, to some degree, believes in equal rights. That's what ERA was all about. So don't blame me for lack of proper upbringing with the men. The other thing I want to say to you women is you also don't move out of the way. You just walk with your camel-sized bags and purses and all your shopping crap-a-roo that you buy, and that's great. I'm glad you can spend yourself silly and buy all your little things and brag. But remember, there's billions of people around the globe that don't have it as good as you. We're not impressed with the 0.01% rich in the world. We're getting kind of tired of them too. And if you want to wear it on your sleeve, I'm not interested in that. But you still need to move in the marketplace for other people. You're not all that. Hong Kong is not your piece of real estate, and you don't own it, so quit acting like it. As far as international city goes, I notice that Australians have a big lack, many of them, of being international. And what I mean by that is in an international city, there are some things you do not say and do not do in public. But the Aussies feel free to exercise their Aussie freedom to mouth off, to say whatever they want about anything in public places. Case in point, I was on a tram this week. 2 Australian women were on the tram, very loudly ripping on the United States. I don't know if they knew I was from there or not, but they were blasting North Dakota and Minnesota. One of the comments made was, Minnesota, they don't even sell alcohol on Sundays, and on, and they were ridiculing that. And I wanted to turn around and say, yeah, we have a small drinking problem in the U.S., but we're not quite as bad as Australian that likes to party hard and act like idiots. Soho, that's a part of Hong Kong. It's the local watering holes for the Aussies. Go there after a night of partying and look at all the litter and beer bottles and debris and people laying around on the sidewalk yelling and screaming the next day. It's real entertaining. These are professionals by day and morons by night. They're the ones that wear the suit and ties. They're the ones that put on their little cult running wear and knock Filipina domestic helpers over, because these are men. These are just mighty, brave, wonderful, ethical men bowling over Filipina domestic helpers. And when I got on an Asia forum for online comments, I mentioned this dynamic, and the Aussies wasted no time in defending their ridiculous behavior. Well, the Filipina domestic helper need to get out of the way. They walk 6 and 7 wide. Yeah, and so do you guys in the marketplace, and you don't budge. 2 Aussies going up the escalator, nobody could get around them. People are saying, excuse me, 2 women. So finally somebody shoved through, and then they yell at them. Ladies, this is Hong Kong. You need to move. I also noticed that the Australian women, many of them had originally brown hair, but they dye it that tacky blonde. I'm not sure what the big blonde craze is, but your hair looks like crap. You can see the brown roots showing through, the rat's nest that you pull up in a bun that says, I didn't shower today, and I put on my sweatpants and no bra, and I'm cool. You look tacky. And for you big-breasted Aussies that love to wear that showing your cleavage, I'm amazed. This is Hong Kong. I'm not sure why you do that. If you look around at the Chinese, most of them are dressed quite modestly. One Australian woman commented, well, that's because the Asian women have small boobs. Excuse me, boobs are boobs. Do you need to show them to everybody? I think that the Australians are tacky. I find that a lot of them are no higher up the food chain than what we call white trash in the USA. They just have more money, but they act like jerks and bastards. This I have seen every day. Every day. When I was on the tram and those 2 women were talking, they were so loud that even the Chinese were looking at them with the look of, wow. The lady, the Asian lady I was talking to, a good and special friend of mine on the phone, says, wow, who's the woman behind you that's so loud? And I said, oh, guess where she's from? Let me guess, Australia. You're the grand prize winner. I talked to a man from Scotland. I've talked to other Americans, and an American made a comment to me 2 weeks ago, said, Pacific, the Australians hate people from the U.S. They can tell by the way you're dressed and all that you're not from Australia. You don't have the accent. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, I've got a message to Australia. What do we do to you? You guys seem to have a good relationship with us in World War II. Most Americans seem to look at Australia quite favorably. And me? I'm no threat to you guys. I'm half your size, just about. And you knock me over in a marketplace, you don't move. An Australian woman walking up the hill, texting, weaving all over the place, not looking where she was going. I'm walking down the hill. I see her coming. I move out of her way. She veers into me, connects my shoulder, and yells, "Oi!" Not sure what that means. Some Aussie speak, I guess. Tells me to get the F out of the way and unleashes a tirade of profanity. And I looked at her and said, "Lady, I believe it was you that was not watching where you were going. You can't reason with fools. And most of these Aussies that live here are foolish in their actions and their daily manners." Hi, pup. There goes a nice-looking dog. You know, I love people, and I've always had a favorable attitude towards Australia. But based on the behavior I've seen here, I have no intention of visiting your country. I'm sure you don't care, but I just thought I'd say, you're representing your country, people, and maybe you don't care. But can I remind you of something? Now, I'm not sure on this, so correct me if I'm wrong with another YouTube video comeback. But you're only, what, 43 million people? The U.S. is 300 million. China's 1 billion. India's 1 billion. Maybe the comment that was made to me 2 weeks ago was right. They don't like Americans because they got little brother syndrome. I hope that that's not going through your mind. You guys got a great economy and a great country. You don't need to envy us. I sure don't envy you guys based on your behavior. The Australian women, a lot of you, I got a message for you. A lot of you are not as good looking as you think you are. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and it's highly subjective. Some of you I look at, you wear your stuff, you got your junk on that you spent too much money for, and you look ridiculous. Your hair looks like a rat's nest, and you're 6 foot tall and lily white. And even an Australian lady friend of mine here in Hong Kong in mid-levels had a talk with me one day about this dynamic, and she even said, "Yes, Pacific, Australians are quite insular." And I noticed that that is indeed true. Most of them are only with their little white group, and they only hang out with their little white group, and they got their little white children in tow. And I look at the children as the parents drag them across crowded intersections where most people are waiting for the walk sign to come out. The Australians just boldly break the law. I don't know what's up with that. I notice even in my culture, a lot of Westerners, walk sign means nothing. Turn signals are not, they're optional. And the bigger the vehicle that an American buys, they bully people out of their way too. I don't know what's happened to manners, but white people, you need to shape up. Americans, Australians. I find a lot of the British to be quite polite. I've met a lot of French here. And even in my country, I've heard a lot of bad stuff said about the French. I find most of the French to be quite polite. And when I'm walking and they're walking, we both yield to each other. I have to say, I've noticed the French use their manners. They say, "I'm sorry, excuse me, please." I give you kudos to the French. And the Brits, I still love you. After all, we started from your country and built America, so we have a lot to be thankful to the British for. And they did a good job setting up the infrastructure in this fine city of Hong Kong. But Australians, get over yourselves. If you think being male means bullying people out of your way, especially ladies, domestic helpers that are definitely only half your size, that's not manhood. That's, to me, is just criminal behavior. Aggression. I don't know if it's because you don't have the guts to take on somebody your own size or what the deal is, but maybe you ought to take on one of your fellow Australians, have a good round of boxing in the middle of the street, and we'll see who comes out the winner. But pushing small people around is never going to score you points. Pretty stupid. And Australian women, you're very loudmouth and obnoxious. Some of us don't care where you're from. This is Hong Kong. Do you see me wearing an American flag on my shirt? This shirt is Asian. Hello. See this? See the Asian medallion? When in Rome, do as the Romans do. When you leave Aussie, leave your Aussie ways behind. Be who you are, but quit wearing it on your sleeve and quit expecting everybody to bow to you because you're from down under. I don't know why you guys got an attitude, but it sucks, and it stinks. And a lot of you males are bastards, and you're jerks. And yeah, you can push some of us around, but just remember, what goes around comes around, and the day is going to come when somebody's going to get tired of it. I read about an Australian who got into a taxi cab and stole it and took it for a joyride. I don't know why it is they don't know how to behave themselves here, but even a Chinese gentleman told me, Soho's so bad. Those Australians are so obnoxious, and I think drinking's foolish. Personally, and not to get into a righteous tangent here, I think getting drunk is for fools anyway. Maybe the Aussies can't deal with life, so that's their medication to deal with pain. I got to deal with all my stresses, which are far more than most of these Aussies. And you don't see me drinking and into addictive behavior like they are. And if you're going to go party, at least throw your beer bottles in the trash instead of them leaving them all over for the Chinese to pick up. Maybe that's why some of the Chinese don't like us round eyes, because they see this behavior and think we're all jerks. I've had to explain to some people, I'm not one of them. That's the truth. The behavior of Australians daily is disgusting. You may work here, consider it a privilege and be thankful for it. It's a great city and a great opportunity. Be thankful that you have an employer paying for your apartment. There are billions of people in the world that cannot afford an apartment or a simple meal. Remember that, and before you think you've worked so hard for it, the domestic helpers work hard for it, and they don't get paid but peanuts. Just because you have a title over your name, just because you're Aussie, doesn't mean you deserve more money. Sorry. The world economy and system isn't always fair. They put emphasis on titles and college degrees, but the people doing the hardest work are the most underpaid, and it's pretty sad. For those of you that want to sit on your butt in an air-conditioned office all day and then play Road Warrior and run and knock people over, you need to grow up. You need to learn that bullying is not acceptable. If somebody was bullying your son or your daughter, you'd be right there screaming and yelling about it. How come when you're an adult you think the rules change? Like I said, everything I needed to know about life I learned in kindergarten. Now let's go back to the USA and some other places that I've been. Manners are disappearing. A guy holds a door open for a woman, she just walks right through and ignores you. No thank you. I see so much rudeness today, and it's gotten worse. And I'm not the only one commenting on this. People of all faiths, people of all walks and ethnicities are noticing a breakdown in this all across the board. It's not that hard to be nice. And in a city here with 7 million people jammed in here, kindness goes a long way. When everybody's pushing and shoving and being rude, it just puts everybody in a bad mood, and then guess what? It's happening to me. The more I'm getting shoved, I'm starting to shove back. You know, relax, people. Slow down. Calm down. We're fellow people. This isn't about America. This isn't about Australia. This is about people. But there are some dynamics within specific groups that need to be addressed. I don't hate Australia, but I do hate the boneheaded behavior I'm seeing by many expats. You guys need to clean it up. You need to take stock. And women, there are other women more beautiful than you. So if you want to play that game, just remember this. When you get older and your large breasts are sagging all the way down to your bellies, what ace card are you going to play then? You need to work on this, people, the inside. Then you men that think you got six-pack abs and you're hot in demand for all the women in Hong Kong, you're going to age too and be a wrinkled, withered old man someday. Then what? We're all going to die. We're all going to age. Let's remember that. If you're strong and you're good looking and you're able-bodied now, start thanking God for it. He can take it away in an instant. If you don't believe me, start reading about normal, healthy people getting in auto accidents or getting run down and being stuck in a wheelchair all their life. Don't take it for granted that you're always going to have the highfalutin, snub-nosed lifestyle. You could lose it in 10 seconds. Anyways, I've said enough about that. Manners in general are disappearing. A lot of people don't say please, or thank you, or excuse me, or when they do bump you, for some reason they don't feel the need to turn around and say, you know, I'm sorry. The Chinese are real good at that. They bang right into me and you hear nothing. And I don't know why that is. And I want to address something about the Chinese here in Hong Kong too that I forgot to mention in my other video. Chinese are very rude. There's a van called Hiace. It's a make and model of a van, what we would call a minivan in the United States. And the 20-something-year-old Chinese punks that drive these things are also very dangerous. I've watched them run red lights, drive up on the sidewalk, bowl people down, force them out of the way. These guys get out of the vans. Most of them are pudgy, not even in shape, and they're walking around with the whole tough guy look and the dyed brown hair and all that. I got a message for you guys. We're not afraid of you. And I don't know what it is about these people. They're making so many people so mad that somebody's going to put their fist through their driver's window and cold cock them right there. I don't know why people do this stuff. You don't use your car as a weapon. You need to follow the traffic laws too. And a note to the Hong Kong police that want to continue to go into karaoke bars and fleece all the people to make sure that they have Hong Kong ID and their visas and everything. I understand there's illegals here, but I'd like to know why it is you single out the Filipinos all the time. Most of the time when I've been in karaoke, I don't know anybody in there who's illegal. But the police come in, the lights go on, and everybody's suddenly like, uh-oh. What are you guys doing about the traffic in Hong Kong? Could you tell me? Even I read in one of the online forums that a white expat was pulled over for parking in a no parking zone while 3 Chinese people pulled over and the police did nothing. Now, I don't want to accuse the police of being racist. The police got a tough job here. I'd hate to be monitoring all of the stuff that goes on in the city. But I've got a question to the Hong Kong police. Where are you with regards to the traffic here? Why are you not pulling over these reckless, dangerous taxi cabs, minibus, and Hiace drivers? Why are you letting people blast through a crowded intersection and not yield to the people already in that area to cross the street? I'm not understanding why I don't see traffic enforcement here. It is very dangerous. Last year when I was here, a taxi cab mowed down an older domestic helper who was at the side of the road. The taxi went so fast he lost control and mowed her down and killed her. A minibus driver plowed through people, and he was suspended from driving for 3 years. I would have charged the son of a bitch with manslaughter. I've watched these minibus drivers. They get in that thing and they think they're in a tank. I don't like the way the Chinese drive. And let's deal with some facts about the Chinese drivers. When they come to the USA and Canada, fact, most of them fail their driver test 3 or 4 times before they pass it. Most of the time the examiner says, stop the car, you're dangerous. Chinese people, there are laws to protect us from you. Start obeying them. And I'd like to see a monitoring of the taxi cab drivers. They have to pay to rent the car, so they're driving around like Nazis to get that money that they've paid and then start making a profit. That's not a good system. They tried that with Domino's Pizza in the USA. The drivers were running around making only for how many pizza deliveries they make, and they changed that. They had to be paid by the hour because insurance companies refused to insure them because they were getting in accidents. You know, the taxi cabs are busy people. To know this city is overwhelming. To get around and do what you do in this crazy city all day, I'm a professional driver in the U.S. I would not want to drive in Hong Kong. This is completely organized chaos. But back to the Hong Kong police. Why do you frisk the Filipinos? Why do you patrol Central up and down and stop them? And, with all due respect, how come you don't check the white guy? I heard a story about a woman who's been living in Hong Kong for 12 years that does not have a visa. She's an Australian. She's a graphics designer here in Hong Kong and is making money. She exits every 3 months, goes to Thailand for 2 weeks or a week, goes to other countries, comes back, and she's making good money. The Hong Kong police need to start checking some of these expats too. Not all of them are on the up and up. Singling out domestic helpers seems to be a little profiling, if you ask me. And that just isn't good. But that's just my observations. I think the Hong Kong police do an outstanding job in other ways. Most of them act professionally. They got a lot of stuff to keep track of. So I'm not here down on you. But could you do something about the traffic here? Could you start nailing these taxi cabs that are speeding and driving reckless? And by the way, the taxi cab drivers, most of them don't use their turn signals. I will say that most of the city bus drivers are pretty good. They drive a little too fast and recklessly, but they use their turn signals, and they do seem to yield to people. But I don't see that with the minibus drivers, and I don't see it with the cabs. Anyways, on manners, I could go on and on. It's not that hard to be kind. It's not that hard to value another person's life. To the Australians, your life is not any more important than mine. You're not any more important in God's eyes than I am. I may be just a lowly American driving a school bus back in the States, but I'm proud of what I do. I earn my money. I don't have any handouts, and I don't have the good life like some of you. I'm blessed, though. I get to do things a lot of people in my own country cannot, like visit, live, and enjoy Hong Kong from time to time. Little kindness goes a long way. A smile and excuse me, driving properly. And the U.S. needs to clean up its driving too. Not sure what it is about people. Naturally, we're all rebellious and nobody wants government, but when it comes to driving, you could kill somebody. You're in a car. Don't use it as a weapon. This is Pacific signing off. Have a great and wonderful day. Bye-bye.